This story starts with a proposal about a year ago when we were visiting one of our favorite places, Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania. This was the first full day of a 10-day trip that we were doing with our Scamp through Pennsylvania, and we figured we would start with something fun and different. So we walked around Longwood Gardens for a while, and then we were just trying to waste some time until it got dark because we were waiting for the fountain show that Longwood Gardens is famous for. They have fountains that are synchronized to music. So while we were relaxing in the conifer knoll, Patrick took this opportunity to show me the ring that he purchased and asked if I wanted to get married. And of course, I said yes. It was such a memorable day and the best way that we could have started that 10-day trip. We spent about a year thinking about the when, where, and how of getting married. We thought about lots of different options, but we were really struggling to find something that felt like it was perfect for us. We thought about every option, from having a big wedding to running away to Las Vegas, but nothing really stuck until almost exactly 1 year later. We found an official that did elopement ceremonies in a park in Spring Lake, New Jersey. So we went up on a Saturday to look around and see if we liked it. We found this gazebo in Potter Park, and it was such an ideal setting. This big old gazebo with this beautiful blue ceiling. There was plenty of space, so just in case it rained on that day, we would have lots of room for everyone to stand under the gazebo. And we both looked at each other and we knew that that was our spot. We took a walk across the street to Spring Lake, and there were actually a few weddings there that day, and they were taking pictures by the lake, by the bridge. There are so many great spots in this area. We walked to downtown and got some coffee, and then went over to the beach. They have a boardwalk that is very quiet and doesn't have any stores or anything, so you can just walk around and enjoy yourself. We went and got our marriage license shortly after, and then everything was in motion.
So don't let the weight of the world slow you down, and if you search for the meaning of life, it won't be found. So take your insecurities and leave them all behind. Let's learn to make the most of our time.
We are in the Scamp and we are going through the packing process, but we are not getting ready for a Scamp trip. I kind of wish we were, but we are doing the final pack for our honeymoon trip. Today's our last day off. We are getting married in 3 days, and then we're going on a road trip through New England. We're going to Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, and upstate New York. So today is our last day to get everything together, and we're taking a lot of things out of the Scamp. We use the Scamp to store our backpacking gear. So that is what we are getting organized and putting into the Jeep today, because then we have 1.5 days of work before we go up to do our wedding, and then we're on the road. This is the Appalachian Trail Guide that I used to decorate the Scamp, and I found the section that we're going to be hiking. So the Zealand Falls Hut is going to be our first night, and then we're going across to the Mitzvah Springs hut. And those are two of the Appalachian Mountain Club huts that are along the Appalachian Trail. So we're going to be doing this topography right here, and then we'll be going back down to Crawford Notch. This trip was a bit of a challenge to pack for. We travel pretty regularly, so this is something we do a lot, but Since we were packing for both a wedding and a honeymoon camping trip, and we weren't going to bring the Scamp, we had a lot of things to think about. When we take the Scamp, everything is in one neat container and everything is kind of where it's supposed to be, but when we do a regular camping trip, there's a lot more to think about. Got most of the camping gear in there, and then here's our big new item, our cooler. We've never used a cooler before, but since we're not taking the Scamp on this one, we decided to try using a cooler so we can bring more fresh stuff with us. Hopefully that makes the process of cooking a little bit easier. This is the itinerary for our wedding and honeymoon trip. We threw this together rather last minute. We decided about 3 weeks ahead. We picked our date that we were going to get married because we decided that a big wedding was just not for us. Elopement was definitely more of our style. So we decided to get married at a very cute town called Spring Lake in central New Jersey at this gazebo in the park. From there, we're going to do our longest driving day up to Salem, Massachusetts. We're going to be staying at a park right outside of Salem, about 8 minutes outside of Salem, and it's right on the water, so we can walk down to the beach from our site. And then we're going to head up and around to Sebago Lake, which is a very large lake in the southern part of Maine. And this was the main thing that we wanted to do on this trip. Neither Pat or myself has been to Maine before, so we wanted to put that in. Then New Hampshire is going to be the middle part of our trip. We're going to be hiking, or rather backpacking, to 2 different Appalachian Mountain Club huts. Originally, before we knew we were getting married this week, I had booked a 6-night backpacking trip through the White Mountains on the Appalachian Trail, and we were going to be staying at Appalachian Mountain Club huts. When we decided a few weeks ago that we were going to make this our wedding trip, I trimmed off the edges and just stuck with the middle 2, so we're going to go to Zealand Falls and Mitzvah Springs. After we leave there and we come out of the backcountry, we're going to spend 1 night at a resort in New Hampshire to recuperate. Then we're driving down to Woodstock, New York, and we're going to camp in Woodstock for 2 nights before heading back down to South Jersey. So that is the itinerary. Oh, Red, you're killing me. We're gonna have to make the next trip a dog-friendly trip. Good boy. Alright, we are almost packed and ready to go. We're getting there. Pat's gonna take Red and drop him off at his parents' house. So he's gonna have a good, fun time doing a doggy vacation. And then we're gonna be on our way. If we can get him out of the Jeep. That's going to be the hard part. Ready? Mm-hmm. Don't forget the flowers.
Cute.
I think we did pretty good packing.
Yeah. For a longer trip.
You can still see out the windows. I remember some trips as a kid where the car was just so full you couldn't even see out. So I think we did all right. Even considering that the cooler takes up a good amount of space, but lets us bring more food.
The sleeping bags.
Oh yeah, the sleeping bags are taking up a lot of room. So. Okay. Once we had all of the wedding stuff and all of the camping stuff packed into the car, we started the drive up to Spring Lake. And right as you come into Spring Lake, you're actually going to pass the park with the gazebo. That's where we're getting married the following day. And Spring Lake overall is a very interesting shore town. We had never been here before coming up to find that gazebo. And it's interesting that this town doesn't have a commercial boardwalk. There's no Ferris wheel, there's no amusement rides. It's very residential. There are these big, beautiful houses all throughout Spring Lake, and there are a lot of historic homes. There are no big hotels. It's all small bed and breakfasts, very boutique style accommodations, and a lot of historic buildings. They do have a small downtown with some restaurants and a coffee shop, but that is on the other side of the lake. So as far as shore towns go, this is a pretty quiet one. We decided to stay at the historic Hewitt Wellington Hotel. It's located on the main road as you enter Spring Lake, directly across from the lake, and it is an old Victorian mansion. There are lots of rooms, there's a big wraparound deck with rocking chairs that you can sit on, and it just has so much character. We thought that this would be a perfect spot to stay for the wedding and for us to get ready ahead of time. Yeah, we're up. 27.
27?
Mm-hmm. She said there's a sign. Yeah. Because this is a historic mansion, there are lots of stairs and no elevator. Our room was all the way up on the 3rd floor. It is up. Wow. We're like at the top. I'm gonna let you figure out the lock.
I have it?
Yeah. Just directions. We were told that the historic locks come with some challenges to figure them out. We booked a suite that has more square footage than our house so that we would have room to get ready the next day. It's like a sitting room.
Yeah.
That's really
Way
neat.
bigger than I thought it would be.
Yeah. It's like 2 rooms.
My parents could come out and hang out in here.
I know. Very neat.
Very big, very neat.
Do we have a view? Can we see anything? Oh, the lake. Yeah. Nice. Since our normal style of travel usually involves camping, this was pretty luxurious accommodation. This is a lot of space. Definitely a nice treat for our wedding preparations. But now we had to navigate those 3 flights of never-ending stairs to bring all of our wedding stuff and all the things that we needed for that night up into our room. But we also wanted to take a walk around the historic hotel because the Hewitt Wellington has all different rooms. Each one has a different theme, a different style to it. This is the sitting room down in the common area at the back of the hotel, and then this is the breezeway where they have breakfast in the morning.
Yep.
And if you continue through the breezeway, you can go out and see the pool. Unfortunately, we were so busy we did not get to take advantage of the pool, but it looked really nice. It's a nice porch. Okay, we got everything into the room. We're gonna go walk over and see my parents. It was a beautiful evening, so we decided to walk a few blocks over to where my parents were staying at a bed and breakfast called Walden on the Pond. And this gave us a chance to explore more of Spring Lake. They have a nice porch too. I think they're in the cottage. My parents decided to stay at Walden on the Pond because it is dog friendly, so they were able to bring their 2 small dogs to stay with them. And we took the dogs for a walk just as the sun was going down, and it was just such a beautiful night. We were hoping that the weather was going to hold out for the next day because the wedding and all of our pictures were going to be done outside. After visiting with my parents, we walked back to our hotel because we had a couple things that we needed to do before the wedding. Since all of this had been planned rather last minute, there were a few little details that we had to take care of. Originally, I wasn't going to have any flowers. I was trying to keep things as simple as possible. But on my way home from work that afternoon, I stopped at the store and I saw this bouquet of pink peonies, which are my favorite flower, and they're usually very hard to find, but there they were. So I figured, all right, I'm going to have a bouquet. So I grabbed the peonies and some smaller blue flowers, and I took them with me and figured, well, I'll put them together into some sort of a bouquet. So after I organized them and trimmed them, Patrick held them together so that I could wrap some twine and tie it together with some ribbon so I would have an official bridal bouquet.
Feels like this is something on Braveheart.
Why?
Like, you know?
I'm so glad I stopped at the store on my way home and found these flowers. They were the perfect last-minute addition to our last-minute elopement ceremony. We spent the rest of the evening relaxing in our giant hotel room, watching The Office and eating Dunkaroos. I did some last-minute alterations on the dress and started getting my hair ready. Overall, we were excited that everything had come together, and it felt like a plan that was perfect for us. We were going to have our family there in our small elopement ceremony in the park. We went to bed early to make sure that we were ready for all of the things that go into a busy wedding day the next morning. We woke up on the morning of June 15th to a perfect, beautiful sunny day. It was warm, there was not a cloud in the sky, and we were so happy because the wedding was going to be outside and all of our pictures were going to be outside. So we were hoping that the weather would cooperate, and we were very lucky. The night before, we spent some time getting everything organized. My last-minute bouquet of flowers was ready to go. We double-checked that we had our rings and all of the things that we needed for wedding day. Even though we were putting effort into trying to do this the simplest way possible, it still felt like a lot of details and things to pull together. And I think that's why we were both kind of nervous. We had to spend some time during the earlier part of the day just relaxing and getting everything organized, but we were definitely nervous, hoping that everything was going to go smoothly and according to plan. Patrick decided to wear the suit that he already had, but just his vest, no jacket, so he would be comfortable. I ended up getting a champagne floor-length dress, and this might have been one of the most challenging parts of wedding planning. It took me months of searching to find a dress that I really liked. I wanted something that was not quite a traditional wedding dress, that had something different and special to it. And the dress that I found I absolutely loved. The detail and the sparkliness of it was just perfect. There was a champagne fabric with an overlay covered in sparkles. There were white and gold, making an Art Deco design coming down the skirt with this beautiful lace scalloping at the bottom. It was a little bit long, but I did not want to have it hemmed because I would lose that design. Just outside our window, you could see St. Catherine's Church, and this is a landmark in Spring Lake. Throughout the day, you can hear the church bells, and I thought it was neat that as I was getting ready, I could hear the church bells off in the distance. Most of the day was spent with getting ready, at least for me it was. I was doing my own hair and makeup, so it took quite a bit of time, especially because my hair is very long. Being able to get through all of those curls and get my hair just the way that I wanted it to go with the dress. I also did some last-minute alterations to the dress. I did most of the alterations myself because I wanted it to fit a certain way. After I was done with my hair, it was time for a cookie break, and then it was time for Patrick to come and start to get ready as well. So there's a few things that we were doing today that are not exactly traditional. It's a little different when you elope, and part of that was that we were both getting ready in the same room, and this was actually one of my favorite parts of the whole day. We were just kind of doing our normal thing, like we usually get ready to go out if we're doing something special. So Patrick helped me get some of the flowers into my hair. I helped him straighten the collar on his shirt. So it was just a neat process of us getting ready. And although it felt like we had all day to do these things, 4 o'clock was coming up very quickly. And at the last little bit, it felt like a rush to grab everything and make sure that we made it to the gazebo on time. We gathered all of our stuff and rushed over to Potter Park, over to the gazebo. And as we got there, the rest of our family was arriving. So that was one of the main things we were nervous. Everything was happening on time and everybody was there when they were supposed to be. When we got to the gazebo and looked at the location where we were doing the ceremony, we knew that we had made the right choice for us. It was just perfect.
They're not married yet.
No pictures yet. As everyone arrived and got settled, Patrick and I worked on setting up our cameras and our tripods. Since we decided to do the photography and the video for the wedding ourselves, we had to set up our equipment. And I'm kind of glad that we made this decision. It gave us something to focus on and keep us busy.
We ready?
Ready!
Dearly beloved, today you celebrate one of life's greatest moments and give recognition to the worth and beauty of love as you join together in vows of marriage. Patrick and Laura, the covenant which you are about to make with each other is meant to be a beautiful and sacred expression of your love for each other. As you pledge your vows to each other, and as you commit your lives to each other, we ask that you do so in all seriousness, and yet with a deep sense of joy, with deep conviction that you are committing yourselves to a dynamic, growing relationship of trust, mutual support, and caring love. So with this in mind, I now ask you, do you, Patrick, take Laura to be your wife? To love her, comfort and keep her, and forsaking all others, remain true to her for as long as you both shall live?
I do.
And do you, Laura, take Patrick to be your husband, to love him, comfort and keep him, and forsaking all others, remain true to him for as long as you both shall live?
I do.
Now that you've declared your intentions, I invite you to share your vows with one another. You want to hand your bouquet over, or I can set them on the bench? Why don't you guys hold hands? Patrick, repeat to Laura after me these words. I, Patrick, take you, Laura,
I, Patrick, take you, Laura,
to be my wedded wife,
to be my wedded wife,
to have and to hold,
to have and to hold,
from this day forward,
to this day forward,
for better, for worse,
for better or worse,
for richer, for poorer,
for richer or poor,
in sickness and in health,
sickness and in health,
to love and to cherish,
to love and to cherish,
till death do us part.
till death do us part.
And Laura, repeat to Patrick after me these words. I, Laura, take you, Patrick,
I, Laura, take you, Patrick,
to be my wedded husband,
to be my wedded husband,
to have and to hold,
to have and to hold,
from this day forward,
from this day forward,
for better, for worse,
for better, for worse,
for richer, for poorer,
for richer, for poorer,
in sickness and in health,
in sickness and in health,
to love and to cherish,
to love and to cherish,
till death do us part.
till death do us part.
As a symbol of your love and commitment, you will exchange rings. These rings have no beginning and no end. They set forth the eternal nature of real love. They will represent the love and trust that you promised to each other this day. So Patrick, I don't know if you could open it for me. Take that ring
Got it.
and place it on Laura's finger. And as you do, repeat to her after me these words. I give you this ring,
I give you this ring,
as I give you myself,
as I give you myself,
with love and affection,
with love and affection,
wear it in peace always.
wear it in peace always.
There you go.
I can believe it.
Go ahead and place that on Patrick's finger, and as you do, repeat to him after me these words. I give you this ring
I give you this ring
as I give you myself,
as I give you myself
with love and affection,
with love and affection.
wear it in peace always.
Wear it in peace always.
You guys can hold hands if you like. As you begin your life as a married couple, I would like to share with you the beautiful and wise words from the wedding reading. Love isn't always perfect. It isn't a fairy tale or a storybook, and it doesn't always come easy. Love is overcoming obstacles, facing challenges, fighting to be together, holding on and never letting go. It is a short word, easy to spell, difficult to define, and impossible to live without. Love is work, but most of all, love is realizing that every hour, every minute, and every second was worth it because you did it together. Laura and Patrick, may you find happiness in your matrimony. May you live faithfully together. May you ever remain compassionate. May your years be rich in the joys of life and your days be long upon the earth. Inasmuch as you, Laura, and you, Patrick, have promised your love for each other by these vows, the joining of hands and the giving of rings, by virtue of the authority vested in me as an officiant and the laws of this state, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. And I get out of that so I'm not photobombing. Did you get the kiss? Was it?
Oh, hug her again.
I hear photographers say, hold it for the count of 5. And here, let me give you your bouquet back so you can get some pictures with that. I'm going to put your ring box here. Here you go. Now some pictures together with that.
A big long day.
Our wedding official, Andrea, was a lot of fun to work with, and she made this whole process of planning the ceremony very easy. We got some pictures in the gazebo, and the nice thing is that everybody has phones with cameras on it now, so we got lots of different pictures. After we got all the different shots that we wanted by the gazebo, we packed up our stuff and headed just across the street to the park where the actual lake is, because we wanted to go over to the bridal bridge. This is where everyone takes pictures for their wedding. And Patrick brought his drone, so he was going to try to get some drone shots and just show how beautiful this whole area is. Spring Lake is such a unique town, especially for its location at the Jersey Shore. It doesn't have any traffic lights, and the parking by the beach doesn't have any parking meters, which is very unusual. There is a boardwalk along the beach, but it's a non-commercial boardwalk, so the feeling of this town is much more relaxed and slower paced than a lot of other towns at the Jersey Shore. Once we had fulfilled our need for all sorts of different pictures and videos, we made our way off of the bridge and headed back to the cars because our next stop was the restaurant. We had reservations at the Breakers, which is a restaurant right on the ocean front. So we were looking forward to a good meal and some good views. One of the reasons we were happy that we picked Spring Lake as the location for our wedding was because everything is very close together. We were able to drive from our hotel to Potter Park and from Potter Park to the Breakers restaurant in just a couple of minutes. It's really just a few blocks this way or a few blocks that way. And we picked this particular date even though it was very last minute because we were trying to get in right before the high season started. As soon as school gets out for the year, the high season at the shore starts. So you can see there were quite a few open parking spots, and that's very unusual for a shore town in July. We also picked Wednesday as the day that we would get married because the shore can get very busy on the weekends. So we thought middle of the week gives us the best chance for less traffic, easier parking, and an easier time getting dinner reservations. We ended up going to the Breakers because we wanted to be oceanfront and they have a lounge. So we figured whenever we got done with the pictures, we could head on over and relax until our table was ready.
There's a red light.
Is there? Yeah. So you know. The Breakers has a lot of different seafood options. I got penne and vodka with crab meat, and Patrick got angel hair with scallops, which was great. Outside the windows behind us, there's actually a great view of the ocean. It was hard to get on video because the lighting in the background was so bright, but that's the ocean over there. After a great dinner that served as a very easy wedding reception, we said goodbye to everybody as they headed back to the hotels. But Patrick and I decided that we weren't ready to go back to the hotel just yet. We took a walk down to the beach. We just needed a little time to soak in the moment and just appreciate the fact that we pulled it together, we made it happen, and we were officially married. We could not have asked for a better day or a better wedding location than Spring Lake. Tired? Even as hard as we worked to try to keep things simple and stress-free, it was still quite an active day. Lots of things to get ready and make sure that we had all the details tied up, and we were happy that everything went as smoothly as it possibly could. But we were definitely looking forward to getting things started for our honeymoon road trip and having a few days to just travel and explore new areas together because that is our favorite thing to do. As we headed back to the hotel, we both agreed that the day went about as perfectly as it could have. It's amazing how everything came together, from finding the right official to do our ceremony, finding this town and this great hotel. The ceremony that we had was simple and special without being too long, and we were able to put all of this together in a very short time frame to make it happen before the high season. So it was quite a lot that we felt like we had accomplished in this day. We headed back to the Hewitt Wellington to change into some more comfortable clothes and to hang out with Patrick's family and just soak in all of the great experiences of the day and get ready for the honeymoon, which starts tomorrow. The day after the wedding, we woke up to a cloudy, rainy morning, which made us feel even more fortunate that our wedding day was so sunny and beautiful. So we are just about ready to head out. Pat went to pull the car around and it looks like the rain is kind of slowing down. I'm just walking through, doing my final check, making sure we didn't miss anything. This was a nice room. It's big, much bigger than our house. Shower was good, very long, hot showers, more than 4 minutes, so that was the luxury of this experience. But great space for us to both be able to get ready in, because we had this whole sitting area. And we can even see just a little bit of the ocean all the way out there. So tiny little ocean view. And now we are going to hit the road, and we have about a 5-hour drive to get up to Salem. We made several trips up and down the 3 flights of stairs, bringing all our stuff to the car, and then we stopped at the continental breakfast area to grab a bite to eat and some coffee before getting on the road and getting this honeymoon road trip started. We got one last look at beautiful Spring Lake, and we're really looking forward to coming back here on our anniversary. That's one of the reasons we picked Spring Lake for the location of our wedding. As we left the area, we drove past the gazebo where we had the ceremony the day before, and you can see on the left side here there's some construction going on. The day before, Patrick went to get sandwiches and he saw the construction and asked them when they were going to be done, and they were done just before we started the ceremony. So very lucky we didn't have a jackhammer in the background of our wedding ceremony. So here's our drive. We were going from Spring Lake up to Winter Island Park outside of Salem. And we had to skirt around New York, unfortunately. We would not have planned it this way if we were starting from a different location, but we had to kind of hug the coast and swing up to the east to get over towards Salem. And this area, of course, is notorious for traffic and congestion, and it lived up to that challenge. We passed the famous American Dream Mall and then headed toward Fort Lee and over the George Washington Bridge. And this was definitely the most stressful portion of the trip. We had to pay extremely close attention to the GPS. Patrick had to watch the traffic patterns so closely. I was trying to make sure that he was prepared to move over and get the correct exit. So The whole time that we were driving here, it was just very intense. We just kept thinking, thank goodness we don't have the Scamp, because if you were towing something trying to do this drive, it would be 10 times more stressful. So thank goodness for that. Today's our longest travel day of the trip, and hopefully the most difficult travel day, which we figured we would get it out of the way the first day when we're excited to be out and about. But we got past New York, that was a little crazy, and now we're coming up to Hartford, Connecticut, and then the last big obstacle will be getting around Boston and into Salem. And that's where, on the map, there's a lot of traffic around Boston. And when I was planning the trip, the drive time today was supposed to be 5 hours, just under 5 hours. But you have to take into consideration, especially on the East Coast, driving's a little crazy. The roads get traffic really easily. They just get super congested. So for a little while we were driving and our drive time was not going down because there were accidents and lots of construction. So we've been driving and driving. And at this point we're supposed to get there around 7, but we haven't gotten through rush hour yet. So we will see how the traffic develops through rush hour. But the other thing is we're on these very major roads and there's no rest stops. There's no like place to pull off and get coffee or anything like that. We stopped for lunch at what they call a texting area, which is just like bathrooms and basically like a truck inspection station. And I made cereal on the hood of the car, and that's what we ate for lunch. So, which is fine. That's why we have food with us. But it's kind of weird that we can't like stop and get coffee or anything. So, all right, 2.5 hours to go. We normally like to keep our drive time to around 2 to 3 hours. So this was a big push for us. And even though there was a lot of red on the map as we approached the Boston area, it was actually better than I think it could have been, just because it was late when we got there, so we were after rush hour. So I think that worked in our favor. But as we pulled into Salem, it was all worth it. The town was so cute, and especially as we made our way into Winter Island Park, it's this little peninsula that sticks out into the ocean. We knew that we made a good decision.
Park to the right of that sign.
Okay.
Careful, I see a rock up there, so let me...
Oh yeah, I see it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, we were still able to check in late, and the host was very friendly. Go Jeep, go.
Yeah.
Day 1 off-roading. And at this point, we were just so glad to be getting out of the car finally. Okay, good.
Perfect.
We were at tent site 38, mostly because this was one of the only spots left when I booked this just a couple weeks earlier.
I guess I'll just leave my bag there for now.
Yeah, let's just do the tent to start because it's getting dark. It was a pretty big challenge planning this trip so last minute. 30. This is definitely a busy summer of travel for a lot of people, and it was hard to find open campsites. Yeah, he was saying this is one of the only sites that's kind of tucked back, so it's a little more private. Oh, neat.
That'll do.
Okay. That was a big reason why we ended up driving so far on our first night. I guess that's like a walking trail, so we will have people like walking through, but...
Come through it,
yeah. See if that goes down to the water. It was so hard to tell when I was booking it if there were like plants or anything around or if it was just open. Like I really couldn't tell.
Yeah.
So, but this is neat. We took a quick walk down to the beach to check out the water.
Yeah.
This was the moment when I finally felt like we were on vacation.
I don't think it was fun.
We made it through the festivities of the wedding. We survived that very long and stressful drive to get up here, and now we were enjoying this beautiful rocky coastline, which was exactly what I pictured for our trip up to New England. So it finally felt like it was time to relax and settle in and enjoy. So we headed back to the campsite to get our tent set up and to settle in. We left the hotel this morning at, I think, a little after 11:30, and we got here at about 7:30. So it was a very full travel day, and about halfway through there I was kind of questioning my planning on this trip of doing such a long drive on the first day, especially because it was longer than either of us really thought, and challenging. The driving through New York was just not fun at all. That traffic was intense, but Patrick did a great job with the driving. We are here before dark, which was the goal, and the water looks beautiful, so all worth it. We're gonna get set up. We're gonna do our official start to camping, which is usually a meal of some sort of noodles, and getting all our sleeping gear set up. So now we're like switching gears. I feel like we have to do a hard shift from wedding mode to camping and travel mode. It's quite different from a luxury Victorian hotel to sleeping on the ground, but that's how we like to do it. We like the contrast, we like the switch, because we're both saying that if we were staying in a hotel tonight, it would just get kind of repetitive, and it's really nice that we have the stargazer open, so if the weather is good, we just get to sleep with this really great ocean breeze. So I think it's gonna be a good night.
I think you can tell off the bat this is one of the better camping sites in this place.
It is. He said it's the only one that is not right in the parking area. We're like tucked back a little bit, so it's nice when I pick a random number and it works
really
out. Yeah, well, when you look at the map, it's so hard to tell what's a good site. So, very nice. As we finished setting up our campsite, we were pleasantly surprised by all of the sounds of nature. We could hear the birds, and we could even hear the ocean a little bit in the background as the tide was starting to come in. But we were warned that we needed to keep an eye out for the raccoons, which are not afraid of people whatsoever. He's climbing down. Huh. Jeez. All right, Mr. Raccoon, we see you. You're not stealthy. I don't think he cares, though.
Yeah.
Critters are coming out. Jeez. We are really used to camping in areas that have bears, so we automatically keep a super clean campsite and put our food away immediately. So once the raccoon figured out he was not getting any free meals, he moved along without an issue. But this campground does not use animal-safe trash cans, and that's a big problem because the raccoons have gotten used to free meals and they are everywhere at night. So you definitely have to keep an eye out and always be careful of your food storage when you're camping so that you don't train the wildlife. The next morning, I woke up to a perfect, beautiful day. This is why I love our stargazer tent, because when the weather is good, we leave the rainfly open and you can immediately see the sun and the leaves and the flowers around you. It just gives you such a stronger connection to nature when you are camping and when you don't have to be completely enclosed by your rainfly. The air smelled sweet because there were so many flowers around us, but I was eager to take the very short walk from our campsite down to the waterfront. We were able to hear the ocean overnight. Anytime I woke up, I could hear the waves because we were that close and the tide was coming in. This is one of those areas that has really big tide shifts. The beach looks completely different at low tide than it does at high tide. And here you can see the rocks are still visible, so the tide has come in a little bit, but it's not all the way in. All along the beach were pink and white wild roses that smelled amazing. I couldn't get over how different this beach looks compared to the beaches in New Jersey. The sand is a different color and texture, the rocks are completely different, and the water is definitely colder. So we weren't going to be doing any swimming at this beach. But I took my usual morning time to relax and explore the campground a little bit while Patrick was sleeping and recovering from that super intense drive that he did the day before. I was eager to get things started because once Patrick was up and we were ready to go, today was going to be our day to explore Salem. Make sure that you are subscribed and hit that notification bell so that you can come along with us as we let new adventures begin in Salem, Massachusetts. And if you'd like to support the production of our videos, head over to our Patreon page where for as little as $1 you can join our Patreon team and get early access to our videos, and during that time they do not have advertisements on them. But most of all, thank you so much for being here and enjoying this trip with us. We have so much more to share with you from New England. The beach at Winter Island Park is so interesting because the tides are quite large. You can see all the wet sand here as the tide has gone out, all of the wet rocks. And later when we check back and the tide comes in, this beach is going to look completely different. So a nice introduction for our first full day of our wedding road trip. We decided to start at this campground because it is right outside of Salem, Massachusetts, and that's a place that neither of us have ever been to. We're doing a couple new things for this trip. This pot is new. I actually got it for the Scamp. This cutting board is new, also for the Scamp. This knife, and the pour over coffee. We've never done pour over before. We usually do French press when we are camping, but that's such a mess to clean up. So we thought that having this would be a lot easier to just take it and throw it out. So with the French press, you have to rinse it out and coffee grinds get everywhere. And even in the Scamp, it makes a giant mess. So I think this is going to be a nicer way to make coffee. And I had cream because we have the cooler. So I made myself this little latte and it is so good. Normally we don't make eggs and that kind of stuff when we're camping because we don't have any way to keep it cold, but now since we have the cooler, we're actually kind of expanding what we get to eat, which I think is nice. After breakfast, we took the short drive into historic Salem. It was a little bit tricky finding parking because one of the main parking garages was closed for some reason, but we were able to look around and found some street parking that was pretty close walking distance to the center of downtown. It was a little tricky finding parking. I think we're good on this street. We didn't see any sign. Well, it's 2-hour parking, so we'll have to come back and move the car in a little bit, but we're not too far from the downtown, which area, so we're gonna go check that out. As an extra bonus, the street that we parked on was lined with these beautiful historic homes. They were painted all different colors, they had beautiful gardens and window boxes, and then when we got to the end of the street, we were right at one of the main parks, so not a bad choice for parking. On one end of the park was the Witch Museum, which we were going to see if we had time to loop back to later.
It's weird because you forget. It's like, it's the beginning here. For the most part.
All the really old, historic stuff.
I'm 1776 and on, pretty much. And a little bit before that, but then this is, 1600 or something?
Yeah. The Salem witch trial started in February of 1692, and we definitely wanted to learn more about this interesting and unusual time in history. So we headed to the Visitor Center, which is a neat spot in downtown, and you can usually find one of those intro videos that will sort of give you the lay of the land when you get somewhere. So always good to stop in the Visitor Center and then figure out your plan for the rest of the day. We tried to sit down and watch the welcome video, but since we were in the car all day yesterday, neither of us felt like sitting. So we decided to go with our other plan, which is wandering aimlessly until we see something interesting.
That's like where they were talking about the treasures or whatever.
Okay. Oh, the museum.
Or down there.
Do you want to do that?
I don't know.
If it rains, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll just walk for now.
Yeah, I'm cool with
The
that.
trees are blue. That's kind of cool. It's like being in a Dr. Seuss book. We wandered right into the Salem Witch Trial Memorial, which is an area with about a 4-foot high granite stone wall. And in the stone wall are 20 benches, and each bench has the name and the means of execution for that victim that was involved in the witch trials. And on the ground throughout this area, you will see inscriptions of quotes taken from documents from the trials. Things like, "God knows that I am innocent." Just next to the memorial is a wooden building that serves as the welcome center for the cemetery just behind the memorial. And this offers a little bit more information about what happened here. And the building itself is an interesting attraction. The wooden beams and the architecture are just beautiful. Then we took a walk through the cemetery. You are welcome to walk through as long as you stay on the path and don't go near the stones themselves to make sure that everything is preserved and protected. After exploring the cemetery, we continued our walk down toward the waterfront. See that orange line that we're walking along? That is the free walking tour that you can follow around downtown Salem. It takes you past 26 of the highlights of the area. But we were going down toward the waterfront because we wanted to see this neat old ship. This is the Friendship of Salem. It is a 171-foot replica of a ship that was built in 1797 in Salem. And usually this serves as a stationary museum, and you can go on and get a closer look at what a ship from that time period would look like. But unfortunately, right now, it is closed to visitors, and they're not sure when it's going to reopen. That would have been neat to see. So we set out on our wandering around the city again, seeing what we could find, and we ended up back on that orange line. So we figured we were probably going in a good direction to find some interesting things and see the sights of Salem.
Should be.
We looped back around to the main pedestrian mall, and this area is lined with shops and restaurants, and of course a lot of things that are witch related, having to do with the occult or anything Halloween. And I've heard that it is quite the experience to come here around Halloween. They have lots of parties and festivities to celebrate this time of year. We decided to visit the witch house. This is the oldest surviving building from that time period, and it was actually the home of one of the judges that was involved in the witch trials. They don't allow video inside, so we only have a few snapshots. You also can't use a flash or anything, so we were kind of limited, but that gives you an idea of the inside. When we were walking back through the pedestrian mall, we saw this gourmet chocolate shop, and you could get little hot chocolates of different flavors, so you know we had to stop.
Super rich.
I got a hot chocolate flavored with nutmeg. Patrick got a coffee, and then we got 2 truffles to share. This was such an experience. That hot chocolate was so flavorful and creamy. and I loved the little dishes and cups that they served it in. It was such a fun experience. These are the things that we love stumbling upon when we are out traveling. We made our way back to the car and headed back to the campground to see the beach. And this is the exact same beach I showed you earlier. It looks completely different at high tide. You can barely even see the rocks. The water comes up so much farther. Last night when we arrived, the beach was empty and it was very quiet. Today there were a lot more people around, specifically a lot of kids. And one of the parents came over and let us know that it was the last day of school, so they were having a big party and there were people everywhere. At least our first night of camping there was relatively quiet. Holy, it was like totally different today. I mean, it was a little bit of a party day yesterday, but today it's like full on. Since the walking path to the beach went right behind our tent, it was not a time to sit and relax at the campsite. So instead we decided to walk around and explore the campground because they do have some historic buildings and ruins on this property. Go check out the armory?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. I think if we came with the Scamp, I would want to do the waterfront.
No?
Well, no, I would, because
You would,
yeah, it would be windy, but I think the view is worth it.
Yeah.
It would also be really nice to have bikes here. This 35-acre island has a long and interesting history, and it has been used for many different uses. In colonial times, this was a place where a lot of fishing ships were stored, and they would process the catch. And then it was later used for the site of executions, and even after that it was a site for important military operations, and Fort Pickering was built on the island. Now you can still see the ruins from some of the structures from the fort. There is a lighthouse that serves as an aid to ships navigating, and now it has changed hands to be run by the city of Salem, and it is being preserved for recreation and to keep a part of history alive in this area. The RV camping area is just in front of the hangar, and there's also a cafe and gift shop in there. We were not around when that was open, so we didn't get to check it out, but we've heard it was pretty neat. I made some pad thai and a salad for dinner. This was a really good dinner. It was shower time. The showers were nice and hot with good water pressure, and that is all I ask of a campground shower. We just got showers. The showers were good. Nothing to really look at, but the water was hot, and that's always what I'm going for. It's very busy here. So it's Friday night, and the family that's camping next to us is having a big party, and they said that school just let out, so it's definitely a party atmosphere, and that's different. We don't usually travel. We don't do a big trip this time of year, so we're not used to thinking about that in terms of the school schedule. So it's like music all over the place, people running through our campsite, big groups of kids all over the place. So it's definitely not a quiet night of camping by any means, but the weather is great. There's a wonderful breeze, and yeah, I mean it's a very interesting campsite. The other thing is that they actually have Wi-Fi here. I've never checked in at a campground and they hand you the Wi-Fi code. We thought he was joking at first, but there is actually Wi-Fi here, and it's pretty strong. Like, we can watch YouTube videos. So I think our plan for tonight is we're gonna get in the tent, and we brought the iPad, and we're gonna watch some like videos and documentaries about the Salem witch trials, so we can actually see some of the places that we visited today in those videos, which is always pretty neat. And just to make things extra interesting, the people up there said that they saw a raccoon running around, and it looked like it had rabies. So there may or may not be a rabid raccoon running around. Luckily, we did not encounter the erratic acting raccoon, and I think maybe a more probable scenario is that a raccoon found somebody's unfinished beer. But with all of those challenges of camping, this beachfront view at sunset made it worth it. Thanks so much for being here. Stick around for the rest of our honeymoon road trip through New England. We packed up our camping gear and headed out of Winter Island Park, but we wanted to show you one more view of how beautiful this area of coastline is just north of Boston, outside of Salem. I think Winter Island was a good stop to start the trip, although it was a long drive that first day. Now we're up in this area with this very different landscape with the really rocky shoreline and the big tides. It's pretty neat. There's so much more to do in this area. We could do walking tours and the Witch Museum and all sorts of things. There's also a ferry that goes to Boston, which would have been great. We said if we had a second day here, we would probably do the ferry to Boston and go walk around and see all the historic stuff there, but we will definitely be back at some point for a longer stay, and hopefully next time with the dog and the Scamp, because if we did the waterfront camping with the Scamp, it would have been great. Windy, but maybe a little bit more private and not have kids running through a tent site. So now we're driving about 40 minutes north. We're making our way up to Maine today, and we're going to the Crane Hill Estate. And it's supposed to have really nice grounds, and it's right on the ocean. Today we were making the drive from Massachusetts up into Maine, but we had all day to make that drive, so we decided to see what we could do on the way. This town was having a festival, but we decided to keep going up toward Castle Hill. One of the main draws of this area is actually the property that it is located on. This is a European-style mansion that was built in Massachusetts, and it really is an experience of being transported to Europe without having to cross an ocean. You feel like you are in another part of the world as soon as you walk onto these grounds. The Great House is a 59-room mansion that was built in 1929 to replace a smaller structure. This was really meant to be the centerpiece of this beautiful property. And the Crane family wanted to create a reserve around the property to make sure that it was preserved for future generations. And you can see the location is really special. The grounds here are used for many different purposes. You can host a party or a wedding here. They have all sorts of different private events. You can walk around the formal gardens. They have hiking trails. There's a beach that you can walk down to. So many different activities. You can go into the house and see the first floor. When we were there, the first floor was open, and you were able to walk around and do a little bit of a self-guided tour to see the original doors and some of the furniture and special wallpaper that they have. And if you have a little bit more time than we did, you might want to take one of these special guided tours where you go up to the second floor or even up to the roof, which sounded very neat because I'm sure the view from the top is quite spectacular. When we're traveling, we like to schedule activities that contrast each other, considering that we slept on the ground last night and were camping, going to a European mansion is quite a switch. Patrick was most excited to see this estate because it was actually used for a photo shoot for the show Downton Abbey, and yes, he is a fan of Downton Abbey. We left the mansion and went through the back formal garden area, and this is one of the things you have to do if you visit the estate. Walk all the way down this long lawn so that you get the view out over the marsh. One of the things I wish we knew ahead of time is that you are welcome to bring outside food and drink and a blanket and find a place to have a picnic. Those people brought wine. That's very clever.
Might be champagne.
Oh, even better.
Maybe.
This would be a great spot for a picnic.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were going to be able to bring food in or not, but I think you can.
Yeah.
As you move away from the house, the views just seem to get better and better. Make sure you take the walk down to the end of the lawn. This is where you can see how special this piece of property is, the way that it overlooks the bay out toward the Atlantic Ocean. You can also keep an eye out for kayaking tours and hiking groups, so there's a ton of things to do here. We made our way back up toward the Great House, but then we took a side trail to explore some of the other formal gardens. There really are quite a lot of walking trails here. There's one that goes right down to the beach. I wish we brought lunch because we could have spent quite a bit more time here if we weren't on a rush to get to Maine. We wanted to go over to the other side of the gardens where they have the formal Italian garden and the rose garden. This area reminded us a lot of one of our other favorite places, Longwood Gardens. The combination of formal gardens, plants, flowers, architectural elements, and history makes it a very multi-dimensional visit. There's so many different things that you can soak in. As we were leaving the formal gardens, we looked over and we saw a couple coming into the gardens, and they were doing an elopement ceremony. We were so excited to see another couple doing a small private ceremony after we had just gotten married a couple days earlier. We spent some time sitting in the formal rose garden, and then it was back to the car because we had some more driving to do. We were heading a little bit farther north into Maine. And this was a part of the trip that we were both very excited about. Neither of us have been to Maine before, and we've heard such great things. We were also very excited about the accommodations that we had in Maine. I booked a 100-year-old knotty pine cabin that was right across the street from Lake Sebago, and this is an area that has a lot of things to do and a lot of things to see in the southern part of Maine. This area has been a vacation destination for a very long time. You can tell by all the little historic cabins and the bungalows that are right along the lake. This is a big area for boating and kayaking and fishing and all sorts of lake activities. Sebago Lake.
Your destination is on the left.
We're 8. 14, 12, 11. She said that the light's on, so I think it's that one. It was the middle of June, and we didn't realize, but that's actually kind of the start of the season here in Maine. They were just starting to open the cabins. We were the first people to stay in this cabin this year, and most of the other cabins were still empty because it's still a little chilly here in June. Cool. And another one with Wi-Fi. I wasn't expecting that.
No, not at all.
Even when you're staying in a 100-year-old cabin, it is starting to get harder and harder to really disconnect from technology. But that also has some perks. When it was a little rainy, we were able to watch some videos and watch a movie. It smells like a cabin.
Yeah.
Like very...
Wait, this is
It smells exactly like you would expect a cabin to smell. Neat. So she said front bedroom?
yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. It smells really good. Cute.
Legit.
Yeah.
You don't like it?
This is a Maine cabin.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Sebago Lake cottages have been in the same family for 3 generations now. Oh good, there's lights. Since it was so early in the season, they didn't have the single cabins open yet, so they put us in the double. Oh, this is the back bedroom.
Open and see.
We could live in here.
Yeah. We have bathrooms though, hey.
After a couple nights of camping, anything with running water and lights feels like luxury. We get showers. Hopefully they're hot. We got stove, sink and everything.
Warmed up.
Man, look at the old fridge. Oh my gosh. Oh, the water got hot?
Yep.
Yes.
Got toaster.
It's like that avocado green color. That's so funny. Neat.
Where's my TV?
I'm surprised they have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I am shocked.
Not much service right now.
No, I had good service before.
Yeah.
We settled into the cabin by starting to make a meal, and it was nice to have a kitchen. They have quite a bit of stuff in this kitchen, utensils, plates, dishes, so we got to take advantage of that and got a break from cooking on the camping stove. We were also about to do something that's very fancy for us, which is actually eating a meal sitting at a table. We usually sit on the floor at the tiny house, so this is fancy. Now, before dinner, we took a walk across the street to the general store, and we got ourselves a couple treats because they have a bakery in the general store, so we couldn't leave empty-handed. Across the street, there's a general store, and it's pretty neat. They have a little bit of everything. We got a local Sebago Lake beer, and they have a little bakery in the back, so they're well known for their whoopie pies. And it's huge. But we had to get one because it smelled so good. They were making fresh ones. We woke up the next day after a very nice sleep, actually being in a bed, and we were happy to be inside because it was rather chilly, but we were going to take our coffee out onto the screened porch. It's neat how the cabin still has a lot of its original touches, like the doorknob and that door. It was forecasted to be rainy today, so we were trying to figure out what our plans would be to make the most of our first full day in Maine.
Hi, you guys surviving?
We're good.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Check it.
Yeah, we're fine.
Kind of chilly.
Yeah.
This is very unusual.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't catch the weather this morning, so I don't know if it's supposed to warm up or not.
Oh.
I think the next couple days it's supposed to be like in the 70s.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's me, but-
Today was like rainy and chilly.
Yeah.
But
Yesterday was windy, but it was sunny. But it was like 70 or maybe 68. It was perfect. I
Yeah.
thought, but
yeah.
For a good part of the day, but
Yeah.
anyway. Warm enough in there?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, it was good.
Okay.
Oh, we're good.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Thank you.
Today is a cloudy, it's supposed to actually be raining today, but it's just kind of cloudy right now, and it's kind of chilly. It's a little breezy. It's probably, it's 56 outside right now. So chilly, which is kind of what I expected. They said this is a little colder than it normally would be in kind of the end of June, but this is sort of what I was expecting in Maine. So what we decided is that we have two...
Drive to highlighted route.
We have 2 full days in Maine because we're staying here 3 nights. Today's our first full day in Maine, so we are going to head toward the city. We're going to go toward Portland because we didn't get time to look at that yesterday. And then hopefully tomorrow's our better weather day, so we get to like take the canoe out onto this great lake that we're here, and maybe do a little bit of hiking in the area to like warm up for our more strenuous hike that we have coming up in New Hampshire. The Sebago Lake cottages were exactly what we were looking for our stay in Maine. They had that very vintage feel. You had running water and hot showers, but you got a little bit of nostalgia too.
Drive 16 miles on Sebago Road.
It was about a 50-minute drive from the cottages into downtown Portland, and we were looking forward to walking around and exploring the city while it was raining. We did our little restock today. Grabbed some food, figured it was raining, so it was a good day to pack up the cooler again on our way toward Portland. And the cooler's doing well.
Yeah.
We packed it with ice before we left. What day was that? Friday?
Friday.
Yeah, today's Sunday. There's still ice in there, so doing well.
It buys us time. We can stock up.
We can
go
get
do something and
different types of food. It kind of expands our diet, or instead of eating like pasta and rice every night, we can have eggs and some fresh vegetables and stuff, which helps. Having a cooler has definitely helped us to enjoy car camping more. Especially today, we were able to stop at the grocery store on our way into Portland because we figured we'd probably be tired later and we would not feel like food shopping. So it was a good time to stop and provision. We drove around for a little while trying to find affordable parking, and we were finally successful. We couldn't find parking at first, so we were going to go into this lot, and it was $40 for a few hours. So luckily we decided not to do that and came over and found one spot right next to this park, and it was $6 for 3 hours, so much better. I don't know if that's a good idea, but okay. We started to wander around the city in no particular direction, just to see what the overall feel of the city was like. And it was chilly and windy. The one thing that we were trying to do was find somewhere to try a lobster roll, because that's what you hear about when you're traveling in Maine around the coast. So we went down to the pier, and we found a little place right on the water that was serving lobster rolls. I feel like this is something that you have to try when you're there. But I will say, this one lobster roll that Patrick and I split was about $37, and it was small, so it was like a little snack. I'm glad we didn't get 2. And it was okay. It was pretty good. It was, lobster on a buttered roll. I think we need to try maybe a different version of this at another point, but it was something we had to do while we were in Portland. We kept walking around for a while and really enjoyed the brick buildings and the cobblestone streets of the older part of the city, but it was getting rather chilly and it had been raining for a while at that point, so we both knew that it was time to find somewhere to sit indoors and to find some coffee and warm back up before we started the trip back up to the cottage. So we didn't get to see a ton of Portland, but we got a little taste of it. So we did our quick exploration of Portland, Maine, and I think we kind of made the best of it given the weather today. It's very cold, really not pleasant to be outside. I mean, we just kind of went from store to store, and we did the lobster roll, which I feel like you kind of have to do when you're here. We split it, and it was still obnoxiously expensive, but it was pretty good. Now we're just cold, and we're gonna go back to the cabin, even though we don't have heat in the cabin. At least we have blankets.
Yeah, blankets.
So I'm sure on another day, Portland, Maine would be really nice to walk around. It's just trying to fit it in on the day that we have. So, okay.
back to our adorable cabin.
When we stopped at the store to get food earlier, we picked up some seafood bisque for dinner. And when we got back to the cottage, we warmed that up and had it with fresh bread from the general store across the street. And that was so good. It was the best meal on a rainy night. But the sound of rain on the roof of the cabin was the most relaxing sound. There are pictures hanging on the wall of the cabins when they were newer, and you can see the car parked out there looks like it's maybe from the 40s, and that cabin to the left is the one that we are staying in. So pretty neat. We had our soup and we got some snacks and got under a blanket because the cabin doesn't have any heat, and we were able to use the Wi-Fi to watch a movie. So a nice end to our rainy day in Maine, but we were getting ready for some hiking and canoeing tomorrow, so we were saving up some energy. We woke up on our second day in Maine to find a completely different weather situation. It was beautiful and sunny. There was just a little bit of a breeze. It was the perfect day to go out and explore. So we started to get ready with some caffeine first, and then I started to make a rather high-calorie breakfast because we were doing some active things today. We really enjoyed staying in this cabin because of all these little touches, the open rafters, the old doorknob, the metal latches on the windows. It's just so neat to see something with so much character. We went to walk across the street to check out the state of the lake. We went past the general store, and this time we restrained ourselves from buying baked goods. But there is a campground directly across the street on the side of the lake. And you can camp here with your RV if you like. Totally different today than it was yesterday. It was so choppy. It's perfect today. Hopefully take the canoe out later. We started our day with a high-calorie breakfast so that we would have plenty of energy for all the activities we had planned. Since it was our one nice day to explore Maine, we had a couple things we wanted to do. First, we wanted to go for a hike to warm up for our more strenuous trip tomorrow. And we also wanted to take a canoe out on the lake. We felt like we had to do that. But first, we were headed up to an area called Douglas Mountain. This hike was very close by, and it was recommended by the owners of the Sebago Lake cottages. So we checked it out on all trails and headed in that direction. We wanted to find a hike that we could do in the morning and still have time in the afternoon to do our canoeing, and we didn't want to be totally exhausted. So this 1.7 mile loop was perfect. It was also going to give us a little taste of the area with some nice views of the mountains. That's nice. Oh, it's the Nature Conservancy. Yeah, that was that other place we hiked in South Jersey.
Okay.
That that river.
The river. Oh, okay.
Little check-in station. You got a porta potty, which is always appreciated at a trailhead. Oh, you can use your snowmobile.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're in Maine, when you see snowmobile crossing signs. So we got two new camera mounts. This is the DSLR mount, and then Patrick has the shoulder mount for the action cam. So testing it out for the longer hike. The trail was pretty quiet, so we got to soak in the sounds of the forest. Most of the trail was in a beautiful deep forest area with some small rocky sections. Feels good to climb something.
Yeah. That's pretty good steepness.
Yeah.
Elevation.
Yeah, it's a little steep. It's a good warm-up for tomorrow. As we got closer to the top, the trees started to open up so we could see more of the sunlight.
Looks like a thing.
The top of Douglas Mountain is marked by a stone observation tower, and it is open to climb up to the top, and you get beautiful views all the way out into New Hampshire. The top of the observation tower is small, so we were waiting our turn to be able to go up the stone steps and get the nice view from the top. And while we were waiting, we got a snuggle attack from these two dogs. And since it had been quite a few days since we had seen our dog, we were very happy to meet these two labs.
Hello.
The view from the top of the observation tower gave us a little preview of what we were going to be doing the next day. In the morning, we are going to be driving from Maine into New Hampshire, into the White Mountains, and we were going to be doing a 3-day backpacking trip. So we could see some of the peaks that we were going to have to be battling. We headed back down and soaked in a little bit more sun, trying to keep a slower pace so that we still had energy left to go canoeing when we got back. The ledge trail coming down is definitely pretty steep. We just came down that rock, going down into this little valley here. Definitely good boots. Don't underestimate the importance of good tread on your boots. After soaking in the view for a while, we made our way down from the summit of Mount Douglas and headed back to the parking area. We were going to make our way back to the Sebago Lake cottages, have a bite to eat, and then we got the kayak. So we definitely had to spend some time on this beautiful lake. And they had just taken the kayaks out of storage and power washed them that morning. So we were the first ones to take it out for the season. Oh. All right. Okay. You didn't want to go in the water.
Huh?
You didn't want to step in the water.
What?
Alright, we're floating.
Oars are upside down.
They are?
Mm-hmm.
Which way do they go?
Huh?
Which way do they go?
Flip them around. Down the whole one.
Like that?
Yep.
What's the difference? It's a tricky thing when you plan a trip. You really don't know what the weather is going to be, so you might have things planned that you want to do, like kayaking, and sometimes the weather cooperates, but sometimes it definitely doesn't. We got very lucky because there was a little wind, but It was easy enough to paddle against, and we got to just kind of float around and relax on the water and watch people on this little island where there's actually someone who lives on the island in the middle of the lake. Even this late in June, the water was very cold. If you stuck your hand in the water, it would actually start to hurt after a few seconds. That's how cold it was. So we were definitely making sure we were staying in the kayak. Neither of us wanted to go for a swim. And we were told that because it was so windy yesterday, it churned up the water, so the top layer didn't get too warm up yet. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
not too windy. I thought maybe it was going to be too windy, but it's not bad at all.
No, not at all. No. There's no bugs.
Yeah.
They're very little. They're that small only.
Especially yesterday, the whole lake was covered in whitecaps. So
yeah,
we really got lucky that we got a perfect day here, because I didn't know if it was going to happen yesterday. We made our way back to the beach at a leisurely pace now that we had fulfilled our second goal of the day. We made it. That's fun. Nice little paddle. Although my paddling skills might be a little rusty, we do enjoy kayaking quite a bit, and because we've been busy the last couple seasons, we really haven't gotten to use our kayaks as much, but we hope in the upcoming season to change that. We went back to the cabin to relax because tomorrow it was over to New Hampshire for the most challenging part of our trip, backpacking the White Mountains. All set to head out. Got everything cleaned up and packed. I'm leaving this really cool 100-year-old cabin.
I'm gonna miss it.
I know. I really liked it. I feel like Maine is not the state for us to live in, but it's been really good visiting.
Yeah.
And if we could find a cabin like this somewhere else, I might buy it.
A little too cold. Season's too short.
Oh, definitely too cold, but
If it was warmer, I'd be here.
so the search continues. And it's a very nice day. I especially like the screen porch. I'm a big fan of the rocking chairs on the screen porch. Okay, got everything?
Yep, good.
Double checked, triple checked.
We lost something. It's meant to be.
There's a lot of little nooks and crannies in there. I bet people forget stuff all the time.
I check behind doors and stuff. So.
Yeah. Okay, to New Hampshire. We had about an hour and a half drive from the Sebago Lake cottages up to the Highland Center, where we were going to be starting our backpacking trip.
Turn left onto US 302 West.
Is he taking off?
He's definitely taxing.
Yeah.
Maybe he's trying to find out more.
Cool. It is a big lake. I could see how. Oh, I guess this is like the northern end. This is more touristy. The northern part of Sebago Lake definitely appeared to have more tourist attractions, and one of the activities that they had were seaplane rides. So you could book yourself to go up on a seaplane and get a tour of the area, which I bet is quite an experience, and I bet the views are spectacular. So we'll keep that in mind if we're ever back in this area. The drive from Maine over toward New Hampshire was beautiful. We were going into the more mountainous area, so the excitement for our backpacking trip was building as we got closer to the mountains. But I have to be honest, I was also rather nervous about this trip. I was concerned about our preparation and if we were ready to do a strenuous hike. We just stopped to grab a couple things. We got ice for the cooler because we will be away from the car for about 2 days. And we got some ham and cheese to make sandwiches before we get on the trail. We have a 5.2 mile hike to get to the hut today. And We probably should have gotten started maybe a little bit earlier, but it's 5.2 miles with 1,800 feet of elevation gain, so we're going up a mountain and over to the other side to get to the height. And the good thing is, today's the longest day of the year, so we have the most daylight. We're trying to make it there for dinner, which I think we should be okay, but just a little bit maybe nervous about this hike, especially because I woke up this morning and I usually read articles on my phone, and one of the articles that popped up was on Saturday there were several rescues of hikers in the White Mountains. One of those hikers lost his life due to serious hypothermia while trying to summit Mount Washington, and the other hikers became lost and cold due to lack of preparation for their hike. In this section of the White Mountains, because they're pretty serious hiking. It's not to be messed around with, especially when the weather isn't good. The weather can be really, really terrible any time of year in the White Mountains. And then 3 other hikers had to be rescued from Crawford Notch because they went off trail and didn't have the right stuff with them. So it's a fairly challenging area for hiking. We're lucky that the weather is good today, so that's on our side, and we have lots of daylight, and we've probably overpacked because that article made me just start shoving things into my bag, just in case. Outdoor recreation has never been more popular than it has in the past few years. And it's great that people are looking into this and trying new hobbies. But at the same time, that means when you start these activities, you definitely have to put some effort into learning how to keep yourself safe, learning what to bring. And we often see people out for a day hike that don't have anything with them. No food, no water, no extra layers of clothing. And that is very dangerous. Even if you think you're out for a day hike, what I learned when I did my wilderness first aid training is that a day hike can very easily turn into an overnight that you were not planning for when you have something as simple as a sprained ankle, which can happen so easily in the backcountry. Just wait until you see the trails that we were hiking on. The whole time we were just thinking, okay, be careful with your footing. Don't sprain an ankle. Don't fall off the mountain, because you would get pretty severely injured. And when you're even just a little ways into the backcountry, it's very difficult to get yourself out. So being over prepared when you go into the wilderness is a good way to go. It's nice. At least we're not waiting. I really thought, given that it's so late, we were going to have to wait to find parking, but
That one's decent, right?
yeah, whatever you want.
Just go ahead and doesn't matter.
During our trip preparation, we downloaded the maps from All Trails into our phone so that we would have some navigation to make sure that we were going in the right direction and staying on the trail as we headed up to the Zealand Falls hut. We parked across the street just past the Highlands Center, and we went down through the Highlands Center because the trailhead leaves right behind the train station. And as we were walking toward the trailhead, I could feel my anticipation building, because this was the point where we were going to figure out if we had physically conditioned ourselves to handle the White Mountains and if we had packed correctly to be prepared for this trip. But walking through the fields of beautiful wildflowers was definitely putting us at ease, and we knew that this was going to be a highlight of our trip. Go back here. It's always tricky finding the trailhead. It's like disorienting.
Good.
Good. All right. Here we go. Oh, we've gone 1.5.
Yeah.
And we've been going about
An hour.
an hour.
But
A
that's
little
from
less.
the parking lot.
So that was extra. Yeah, the trail is very rocky. Not as bad as Pennsylvania yet. Roots and some wet sections. We did a couple stream crossings, which are nice because I don't know if you can still hear it, but most of the trail you can hear water, which is nice. We stopped periodically to take in the view and take a break from watching the trail and being super careful where we were putting our feet, especially because it was so rocky and there were quite a few stream crossings, so slippery rocks mean you have to be extra cautious. We were trying to strike a good balance between moving quickly so that we would get to the hut on time for dinner, but not moving so fast that we were making mistakes or tripping over things. So there's definitely a balance there. Oh.
Probably almost get there around 5.
Probably. Yeah. Oh, a nice little stream. When we're on a backpacking trip, we both typically use trekking poles, and this is for a few different reasons. Trekking poles help to distribute the effort between your legs and your arms, so your legs won't get quite as tired, especially when you're carrying a heavy pack.
Good to go?
Yeah.
I guess we're going over.
We made it to the highest elevation on the trail for this day and started to go down the other side with lots more stream crossings.
Cool.
And that's the other place where the trekking poles are so helpful. Having multiple points of contact with the ground makes your balance a lot steadier, and you are less likely to hurt your ankle or twist a knee, especially when you're climbing over slippery rocks and roots. So it can make you a little bit safer and steadier in the backcountry. We're making decent time.
Yeah.
It's
A lot of rocks.
a lot of rocks. You gotta be super careful where you're putting your feet. You can't look up and walk most of the time. One of the mistakes that new hikers will make is not taking into consideration the terrain that they're covering when they're estimating how long a hike is going to take. So even though we were only going about 5 miles, it was going to take us a little over 5 hours because there were so many stream crossings where you are moving quite slowly and there's so many rocky areas, you are just not able to move as quickly as you can if you're walking a few miles on pavement or, on your neighborhood street. This is totally different. And then when you add in going up elevation or going down where you're trying to be really careful not to put too much strain on your knees, you're going to be moving quite a bit slower than you would in normal day-to-day life. We've done about 4.8 miles, so we're getting fairly close. It's been kind of slower because it is a technical trail. You have to be so careful of your footing, and there's a lot of wet spots. But we're almost there. And if you are stopping periodically to film your trip for YouTube, you can add even more time to that because that's definitely going to make you move more slowly. As we got closer to Zealand Falls Hut, there were more and more stream crossings and wet, boggy areas. And given that we were hiking toward a waterfall, we took that as a good sign that we were getting closer. Yeah, we're starting to hear people. Must be getting close. It's almost 5.
Yeah.
We'll hike to the food.
Yeah.
Overall, we did a good job conditioning ourselves for this trip, but we were starting to get a bit tired and a little hungry. Okay. 0.5. Yeah, hopefully dinner's at 5:30.
Yeah. Leftovers?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll give us something to eat.
Yeah.
With the promise of food as our motivation, we made the last steep climb up the rocky area towards the Zealand Falls Hut. And almost like a mirage in the forest, all of a sudden the hut appeared. And we were quite happy that we made it. Luckily, when we arrived a little bit after 5, they were still cooking dinner. They give you some time for the hikers to come in and get settled. So we went into the bunk room. It's a lot of bunk.
What's that?
It's a high bunk.
Yeah.
Zealand Falls is one of the smaller huts in the Appalachian Mountain Club's chain of huts in New Hampshire. But luckily it wasn't completely full that night, so we were able to get a lower and a middle bunk. I actually like sleeping on bunk beds, but that 3rd row bunk was a little scary with how high it was, and there's really not much of a lip holding you in there. So hopefully you are a very sound sleeper. Yeah, rest your feet. But we got all our stuff unpacked and set up so that we were ready for some much needed sleep later, and we were excited because I've heard so much over the years of how great the food is at the huts. It is quite famous among hikers. They feed you well, and there are multiple courses to the meals, so we were super ready. See those wooden packs lined up against the wall? That's what the hut workers use to go down the mountain and carry about 50 to 60 pounds of fresh food up to the hut so that they can cook us these delicious meals. These are the bathrooms. They're very basic: running water, composting toilet, and you do not get a shower, so things are definitely a little bit rustic, but when you don't have to carry a tent and you get fed a delicious hot meal at the end of a hike, I would say that the experience of staying in the hut is completely worth it. After a delicious meal that exceeded our expectations, we walked just past the hut to Zealand Falls. And the waterfall here actually has a hydroelectric setup, so all of the electricity for the hut is powered by the waterfall that gives it its name. Very cold. Yeah, colder than the lake. We were both feeling pretty good at this point. We made it to the hut, we had a great meal, and we knew that all of the time we spent in the gym working on our strength and our cardio to get conditioned for this trip paid off.
At a bottom bunk.
Yes.
Medium bunk, I can do it.
The top bunk is like death. You fall out of that, it's not going to go well.
When you have night terrors, it's not a good idea.
At this point, we were starting to feel more comfortable and confident in our backpacking skills. We made it to the hut on time. We didn't forget any essential pieces of gear, so we got to stand in front of the hut and watch this beautiful sunset for the longest day of the year. The next day, we were looking at the longest hike. We were going to retrace our steps from today and climb up the next mountain to the Mitzvah Springs hut. So we definitely needed to get a good night's rest, and we were looking forward to more of the famous cooking when we got up for breakfast. we woke up in the Zealand Falls hut after a pretty good night of sleep. I think anytime you have a bunch of people sleeping in one room, there's going to be some snoring and some shuffling around, but with earplugs, it was manageable. And since we were right next to the window, we woke up to this nice mountain view. I waited for Patrick to get up because we had a good hearty breakfast before we did our longest hike of this trip. This is the common area and the dining room of the Zealand Falls hut. Each of the huts in the Appalachian Mountain Club's collection are different. They all have a different layout. Some are bigger, some are smaller. This one is one of the smaller ones, and it is also open in the winter. It's not fully staffed, so you won't get these amazing meals. If you appreciate your staff, you can leave them a tip, and they did an awesome job keeping us well fed. And make sure before you head out that you check the weather report, because they have the special mountain weather forecast. The weather in town, in the valley, can be completely different from what's happening up in the mountains. So if you're setting out for the day, that is a very important piece of information. Originally, we were going to stay at about 5 of the huts in a row, but we trimmed off the edges and we ended up just staying at Zealand Falls. And today we were hiking back down to the lodge and then up the other side to Mitzvah Springs. So I feel like we at least got the experience of what doing a hut-to-hut hike with the Appalachian Mountain Club is like, and we quite enjoyed it. I think this is something that we would like to come back and do, but maybe with a bit more time.
Windy. A little windy.
A little windy, yeah. It'll be good once we go down, though.
Yeah.
We got the All Trails app started, so we had some navigation. But the first part of our hike, we were just retracing our steps from the previous day, heading back down to the Highlands Center, and then we were going to be going up the opposite side. So the first stretch was a lot of downhill, and I have to admit, downhill is my least favorite part because it really beats up your feet and your legs. We took some time to enjoy the lower part of Zealand Falls because yesterday we were just rushing up to the hut to try to make it up there in time for dinner. And then we took the bridge over the pond area, and as we headed into the forest away from the other hikers, we found something very interesting. I don't know. Yeah, it's fairly big. There's my hand. I don't think it's a foot or a human foot. It's pretty wide too. So we're getting the bear spray out.
This is where you sometimes don't want to be too minimalist. You want to bring the right equipment. So
they did say their compost pile has an electric fence around it.
Yeah.
Because of bears.
Hint, hint.
So.
And you don't want to be searching for the stuff when it's in your bag.
You know.
You won't pull it out.
We had it in the backpack, and then I saw this footprint, and I was like, maybe we should take out the bear spray, just in case. Especially because yesterday we really didn't see anybody else on the trail for like a couple hours. So I don't think this is one of the heavier traveled trails. I'm no expert tracker, but that looked like a fresh bear print to me. So we were extra careful moving forward on the trail. We had a bit of uphill and then lots of downhill with many more stream crossings and wet areas. Good thing we didn't step on them. What are you doing there? This guy was quite comfortable right in the middle of the trail. I almost stepped on him. Alright. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Because of the route that we took, we did not get to go above tree line, unfortunately. That's where you get the amazing sweeping views of the mountains. But there's a lot to love about being in this deep forest, especially because it's so different from the Pine Barrens where we live. We went up and over the mountain ridge and then headed back down into the valley. In addition to stream crossings, there were a few fallen trees we had to navigate. Oh. These maneuvers are always so much more challenging when you have a large backpack on. We were getting ready to take our morning snack break, trying to keep our energy up, and this tree that was growing over a big boulder seemed like a great place to stop. Even after our morning snack break, I was still feeling pretty tired, and my knees were really starting to hurt from the constant rocky downhill. So this is my not happy face, but we were getting close to the lodge, and I was holding out hope that we could get a hot lunch. When we came out at the trailhead, it was actually starting to drizzle. It was very windy. The conditions were quite unpleasant, and it was not helping morale at this point. We trudged over to the lodge and decided to get a hot lunch to try to rally and bring our energy up. And this was just what we needed. They had this hearty black bean soup with fresh bread and coffee, and our energy started to come back. We saw this pack with food that was getting ready to go up to the lodge that we were staying at. Oh, only if you're in top physical condition. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I feel in top physical condition right now. Pretty tired. So we stopped at the Highland Center and got some food. And it's actually a little less windy now, but it's starting to rain. And we have like, what, a little over 2 miles?
Yeah. Yeah, they said
to get up to Mitzvah.
They said 2.5, 3 hours.
Because it's steep. And my knees are not thrilled about it. 2.6 miles of up. We're starting all trails. After lunch at the Highland Center, we continued up the opposite side of Crawford Notch toward Mitzvah Springs Hut at 3,800 feet of elevation. Now, if we kept our original plan, we were going to continue up the side of Mount Washington to the Lake of the Clouds and the Madison Spring Huts. We would have summited Mount Washington. But since we changed our plans, we were going to be doing just this one additional hut before coming back down. And I kind of wish that we had stuck with our original plan, and I'll tell you why later. Remember that backboard that we saw packed with food to go up to the hut? Well, there it is, being toted up the mountain. We were feeling a bit tired, but when we saw this hut worker pass us, we figured we cannot complain. I feel like when we hit the Highland Center, I was pretty tired and sore, slightly contemplating if there were any hotels in the area. But then once we got on the trail, well, once we ate and got on the trail, I feel like I have rallied. And then seeing the girls carrying, 60 pounds of food on their back, I was like, oh man, I better suck it up. Yeah. No room for complaining. Yeah. We were actually enjoying this part of the trail better than what we hiked earlier. I don't mind the challenge of a continuous uphill climb. I kind of enjoy it. And this part of the trail mostly followed a stream, so it was nice to hear that sound of moving water. Squishy carpet of green.
Yeah. A lot of water.
The steeper, rockier way. Yeah. All right.
0.7.
0.7, all right. We can do it.
Yeah.
Looks like we got most of the uphill pretty well. And from the topographical map at the Highland Center, it looks like it kind of leveled off for a little while before we get to the hut. So I think we made the uphill, so that's the good news for the day. It's getting windy though, especially as we get up higher. It's Pretty windy up here. Good thing we're not in a tent.
$200
When you put this much effort into getting away from civilization, it doesn't seem like there should be a man-made structure up here, perched on the side of a mountain. But you come out of the trail and there it is.
Hello.
This hut is quite a bit bigger than the hut that we stayed in last night. The layout is completely different. It's interesting to see how each of the huts are so unique. In Mitzvah Springs hut, the rooms are upstairs. There are sections with 8 bunks each, and we were lucky enough to get our own bunk.
Yeah, bread again.
You like the bread?
Yeah.
The food is great.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't film the meal at Zealand Falls just because it's like, you don't want to, have a camera in people's faces, but the food was awesome, which I've heard that the food's really good, so looking forward to dinner.
Yes. I'm thinking this one?
Yeah, this is neat. We have our own little room back here. I don't know if we'll be alone, but
Yeah.
it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is cool.
Hopefully less snoring than last night.
You were doing pretty bad, yeah.
What? I was not. Last night we had bread and minestrone soup, quinoa salad, enchiladas, and then this really awesome lemon cake for dessert. And so breakfast was like oatmeal, pancakes, eggs, sausages, and coffee cake. So they feed you really well. They know that you're burning calories, and when you get there you're hungry, so it's nice. It makes the process of hiking a lot easier, that you're not just eating like, ramen noodles every day. You're getting a really big hearty meal, like as much as you can eat, so that's great. We headed down to the dining area to get ready for dinner, and I feel like this is when the day had done a full 180. From being tired and achy, we were so happy to be in this hut. We had a hearty vegetable soup to start. It was pulled pork, mashed potatoes, and peas, and then this delicious cinnamon cake for dessert. We were especially happy to be in the hut, not just because of the amazing food, but because there was a lot of weather coming in. It was drizzly. You could actually see the clouds coming over the mountaintop, and a thick fog was setting in. Even though the hut is not heated, just being inside out of the damp air made all the difference. If we were camping like out of the hut, we would definitely need better sleeping bags. I know I would.
You can really see it really coming in now.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be foggy when we start hiking in the morning.
Probably.
Might.
At least it's short.
Morning, Mitzvah Springs hut. The time is 6:30 with hot coffee waiting and breakfast will be at 7. That's they said. Sorry.
We had an interesting wake-up call in the Mitzvah Springs hut, and we started to get ready for our last day of backpacking. We started the morning ritual of packing all of our stuff. I was sad that the experience was over. I enjoyed staying at the Appalachian Mountain Club's huts. We still had one more meal, a delicious breakfast, before we had to hit the trail. But we were also pretty motivated by our next stop, which was going to involve a good long hot shower and a hot tub. It is a beautiful foggy day in the mountains, and I'm actually really looking forward to the hike down. Hopefully my knees are going to be okay. That was the biggest thing that I was worried about when we were starting this whole process, was just making sure that we were physically conditioned enough to handle how rigorous the trails in the White Mountains are, because they are much more strenuous than most places that you will go hiking. And today what we would have been doing is going from here up pretty high to Lake of the Clouds, but since we kind of trimmed the ends of this trip, what was supposed to be a 5-day trip backpacking from hut to hut, we just did the 2 days, and we did that just to fit more stuff in, because this was originally not planned as a honeymoon trip. So we kind of reorganized where we were going to be staying. So today we're going to be hiking back down the same trail that we came up to go back to the Highlands Center. Patrick already has plans to get a sandwich and coffee for lunch, and then we'll drive to the resort that we're staying at for our one fancy night. We usually try to do one night on every trip that is a little bit fancier. The kind of ironic, funny thing is that these nights staying in the huts were actually the most expensive nights of our trip. And that's because it's your lodging and 2 meals. You get dinner and breakfast and some entertainment from the hut members. They do little skits and things to entertain you, but the food is wonderful. They do such a good job with the cooking, and it's so nice to be inside right now, because if we were tent camping, I know this fog would be soaking into the tent. Everything would be damp and chilly, but we are starting out super fresh because we were inside and we had a great meal, and I slept really well last night. So really looking forward to just kind of taking our time on the way down, being nice to our knees, and enjoying how beautiful the forest looks when it is foggy like this. It's a special treat. After another delicious breakfast, we got all of our things packed into our backpacks and got ready to get back onto the trail. After breakfast, they read us the weather report for the day, and they asked if anyone was going to be summiting Mount Washington today. Nobody was, so they said, maybe you don't want to hear this. But we asked them to read it anyway, and they said that the fog was going to clear in about an hour, and then it was going to be perfectly clear at the summit. And you could hear this collective sigh or groan of disappointment, because you know every hiker in that room was thinking, man, there's our weather window. We could have summited Mount Washington today on a perfect, beautiful day. But that's how it goes in the mountains. You're always just kind of guessing and hoping for good weather. Okay. Sore, but not as sore as I feel like I was expecting to be. So we were a little disappointed that we were turning and going in the opposite direction and heading back down, but it was still going to be a beautiful hike anyway. The fog was quite thick as we got ready to head out onto the trail, and it was pretty chilly.
Okay, you guys be safe out there. Okay. I don't know about your views. I think your views are toast. Yeah, they are.
Ready?
Yeah, stop it.
It's a little chilly. I'm glad I had put a fleece on.
It's damp.
Yeah,
it's very damp. Yeah. Pretty though.
Different experience. Seeing the clouds come over the hut, the fog, the clouds.
It's like makes the forest look totally different.
Yeah.
It's like magical.
Yeah. We're a pain in the butt.
Well, as long as you can navigate, that's the thing, because sometimes it can get so thick that you can't see your signs or you lose your path, but it's not that thick. From the boisterous hiking crowd in the hut, we headed out into the silent forest, and it felt even quieter today because of this blanket of fog. Once we got a little ways away from the hut, it was back to hiking by ourselves and really having all the space and quiet that you could ask for.
Yeah, he could do this one.
We just have to be careful.
Yep. Some booties? Light in his pack.
Yeah, if we're doing a trail like this, I don't think when you're hiking in the forest like this and it's so foggy, it just has the feeling of being in a prehistoric forest. Like you woke up and you were transported back in time. And a lot of hikers don't like the fog or being in the clouds because it means if you get to an overlook, you don't get to see anything. But I think the experience of hiking in the forest through the trees is really enhanced by this experience of being inside the clouds.
Probably our only uphill for the day. A little darkness over there, a little light over there.
It's like the ultimate experience of impermanence.
Yeah.
Where, like, the light's changing, everything changes constantly. The trees, the plants, everything.
Well, even the trail yesterday, I tried we remember certain spots of the trail, but going the other way, it turns into another trail. And then the part that I was like, oh, we didn't pass it already. And I was like, no, we totally passed it. And I was like, oh, shoot. Because it's so different going the other way.
You have to stop. On a trail like this, you have to stop because when you're walking, you're so concentrating on not falling and getting hurt that you really can't look around and look up and look at the trees and get the details. So you have to stop, which adds more time.
Yeah.
It really does take you a long time to get anywhere in the White Mountains, but
I almost feel like today I'm starting to get my legs too.
that third day, the third day you start to...
First day I'm like, okay, get where I'm going. Gotta get where I'm going.
I was nervous.
Well, we kind of did, but then even today or yesterday was longer miles, and then we got some street cred from the guide. She's
That's nice.
Surprised that we did.
Yeah. She was like, oh, you came all the way from Zealand Falls? Yeah. Like, that's pretty good. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Now I don't feel so bad that I was tired and sore.
I'm going 1.4, 1.2 miles an hour.
Yeah. We were not breaking any speed records, that's for sure. But we made it.
We made it.
Important thing. Yeah, it looks great. Yeah. A little bit of brightness through the trees. As the fog burned off, we started to notice that the birds were starting to wake up and become a lot more active. It was funny, yesterday as we were getting ready to go up this trail, I was not very happy and contemplating if we should cancel it and change our plans. And then today, I'm trying to figure out how slow I can walk because I don't want it to be over because it's so pretty. And we're getting to that point where we're on like the downward slope of the trip. Starting to think about heading back home. That's always the hard part of the trip for me, especially because I know it's going to be a long time before we get to be around mountains like this again, but we'll definitely be back. Love the White Mountains. We carried on slowly down the trail, trying to soak everything in and really savor the experience, because this was a special part of the trip. And looking back, this was my favorite part of the whole trip. With all of the challenges and discomfort and being sore, it was still my favorite. And on this third day, we could feel the difference in our bodies. It's so hard to condition yourself to doing something like this when you don't get to do it on a regular basis. No matter how hard we work out in the gym, it's never quite the same. But on that third day, you start to feel your body acclimating. He doesn't even care that we're here.
Yeah.
Just going about his business. All right, sir.
Good.
Enjoy. After our all too quick 2.7 mile hike down the hill, we were approaching the parking area, and we were trying to go even more slowly, even though we were excited about our post-hike meal. But it doesn't have quite the same appeal after you've been fed so well at the huts, but that doesn't mean we were going to skip it.
Jeep's still there.
We were happy to see the Jeep was right where we left it, which means I guess we filled out the parking pass correctly. Made it. Even though I was sad for the hike to be over, I was looking forward to being able to take off my pack. It's been a very long time since I've worn a backpack this heavy for 3 days in a row. We threw our packs in the Jeep and then headed across the street to the Highland Center to have a good lunch. And when we were in there, we saw that the Appalachian Mountain Club was founded in 1876. I had no idea that it had been around for that long. I really love the Appalachian Mountain Club, and I credit them with the fact that I'm so outdoorsy. They are the organization that I went hiking with my dad and my brother many years ago, and I've taken so many workshops and classes with them that have taught me so much. So I'm very appreciative of them. And if you're looking for a way to get outdoors but to learn some skills along the way, look into the Appalachian Mountain Club. We finished off that meal pretty quickly, and then we were making our way to the resort for a recovery day. We booked this place because it had little cottages. It was close to the Franconia Notch State Park, which is one of my favorite hiking areas, and most importantly, it had a hot tub. After we completed our hike, we drove about half an hour down to the Indian Head Resort. This resort is named for a popular hike and overlook that is located in the area, but we were not going to be hiking. We needed to take it easy for a couple days. I picked this resort because it has a very nostalgic feel, that old roadside resort. And they had an area with little cabins that were pretty affordable for the night. And most importantly, they had hot showers and a fireplace. So we were ready to relax.
Dirty dancing.
It was neat. I was going for that tiny cottage experience on this trip.
Got it.
Got a little porch facing, looks like a dry creek, but it's pretty cute. I could live in this too.
Didn't get inside yet.
Okay, well, just saying.
Make entry.
Oh, this is an old doorknob too.
cleaning
Smells
products.
like Lysol.
Yeah, that's good.
I love how you can find these little vacation cottages scattered throughout New England.
Alright. It'll do.
As long as it's got a shower, that's my main objective.
It's got a shower.
It's got a shower.
It's sold.
Okay. We wasted no time getting settled in our cottage, showered, and then put our swimsuits on and headed across the street to the main resort. We were going outside to the pool area, which had a hot tub. And this was the other major reason that I booked this resort, was because I knew after 3 days of backpacking, we were really going to look forward to being able to soak in a hot tub for a little while. What? I'm pushing the button. Sometimes it's difficult to capture the reality of our experience when we are traveling. I was like, it didn't work. There we go. Mainly because we try hard not to film other people around us. And as you can hear, the pool area was very busy. There was a wedding the following day, and lots of families were staying at the resort for the wedding. So even though it looks like we had the hot tub all to ourselves, surrounded by beautiful mountains and clouds, it was really about 2 minutes that we were by ourselves, and then it was us and like 12 kids in the hot tub. So we got to film just a tiny bit to share the experience with you, but keep in mind what you see in our videos or in social media is very often not an accurate representation of what the full experience was like. But with that said, we still really enjoyed being in the hot tub and talking to some of the other guests and seeing what people were up to in the area. A little while later, it started to rain, which did clear everybody out of the pool area. So we got to enjoy a little bit of peace and quiet there. But we were getting pretty hungry, so we headed back to the cottage to get ready for dinner. We're gonna walk over to dinner in the rain, because it's not that far. Right across the street. Ready? These are the cottages that are across the street from the main resort area. There are quite a few of them, all identical with the same layout. The fireplace in the front, the little screen porch, living room area. They are quite cute. We walked across the street and enjoyed this beautiful backdrop of the mountains behind the main resort area. And we felt so fortunate with the weather because we had very good weather when we were on our backpacking trip. This would probably not have been as much fun to hike in. And now we were ready for a different part of the trip. Now, if you've been watching our channel for a while, we usually do kind of budget travel. We camp a lot. We usually stay in more affordable places. But on most trips, we try to do one night where we have a fancier dinner or we stay at a nicer hotel room. And tonight was going to be what we called our fancy night. We were going to have a nice dinner, and you really could not beat the views for our table. When you're traveling, there are certain things that you plan ahead, like where you're staying or maybe a hike that we're going to do. And then there are other things that we don't plan. And these are actually my favorite things when we travel. The little experiences that just kind of fall together by accident. When we got seated, we noticed that half the dining room was cleared out and there were a group of what looked like high school kids with instruments, and they were getting warmed up. We didn't really know what was going on, but we found out later that they were on a school trip. They are a band from a charter high school, and they do this every year. They come up to this area and they play, and we just happened to be there at the exact time that they were going to be doing their concert. It's a little chilly this morning. It has stopped raining and the sun just started to come out. But The best thing is this propane fireplace. So nice. It's actually the only heat in here, so it's hooked up to the thermostat. We're trying to dry all the swim stuff. And I'm making coffee over here. I'm still using our pour over because it just makes better coffee than the coffee they give you here. But when I have a coffee maker, especially this one's great, it's a 4-cup coffee maker. So I just use the hot water from that to make coffee. And then I'm going to make oatmeal with an apple. And I'll throw some granola and walnuts in there. So it's a little bit heartier. Kind of tastes better than just the regular oatmeal by itself. But it looks like it's going to be a nice day. It's still chilly, but pretty nice. Sun's out. Hopefully it'll warm up a little bit. And we're getting ready to head to New York. I feel like if you took these little cabins and just plopped one onto a piece of property somewhere, we would move right in. Especially this one. Little tiny screen porch, you could probably make that a little bit bigger. You've got the fireplace, which was wonderful when it was raining last night. We love the little arch here with the round door. So cute. And it's probably pretty good square footage compared to what we have right now, but we cleared out pretty quick. Checkout's 11, and the car is getting to that point of chaos in the trip. I was saying that this is when I start to miss the Scamp, because at least with the Scamp, it gets messy really quickly, but I have places to put everything. Our clothes have their little overhead bins, our kitchen stuff is in the kitchen, where right now our backpacks and everything are just sort of piled and thrown in, because now we are going to do, I think it's about a 4-hour drive down to Woodstock, New York. So what I did was, the drive from New Hampshire to home is a little over 8 hours, so I kind of split it into 2 days so that we wouldn't go crazy being in the car for too long. So okay, we're gonna go check out and then start heading down to Woodstock. I was so sad as we got ready to leave New Hampshire. At least we got to enjoy some more of the beautiful mountain views as we headed south toward upstate New York. And I know that I want to come back here as soon as possible, and hopefully next time with more time, more days for us to explore and get a better idea of all the wonderful things that the White Mountains have to offer. Make sure that you are subscribed so you can come along with us for the last leg of our honeymoon road trip. So we headed to upstate New York, and we were going to explore the famous town of Woodstock. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you in the next one. For the final stop of our honeymoon road trip, we left New Hampshire and made the drive to upstate New York. We decided to stay in Woodstock, New York for a few different reasons. We wanted to add another state to our New England road trip, and neither of us have really explored upstate New York very much. We thought that Woodstock sounded interesting, and it was the weekend, so it was very hard for me to book anything, especially because this trip was put together a little bit last minute. But we finally found something. We are in Woodstock, New York, and this is our campsite for the last 2 nights of our trip. It was really tricky. Today's Friday night, tomorrow's Saturday night, so those are our last 2 nights, and those are always the hardest to book, especially in the summer, especially because I waited kind of last minute to book the trip. So what we ended up having to do was use the website HipCamp to find a spot, because all the state parks and every other thing that I usually use was booked. So it was the first time using HipCamp, which is basically where you can camp on someone's property. So this is a really pretty property. ton of bird noises and nature noises. So nice little camp spot. It's a little close to the road. The road is right there. It's not a real busy road, but definitely some cars going by here and there. It's supposed to be good weather though the next 2 nights, so hopefully the stargazer will actually do its job and we'll get to see some good stars tonight. It had been another long day in the car, which is not our favorite. We got our campsite set up and I started to cook some dinner. One of the things that I noticed immediately about this particular campsite was the abundance of wildlife sounds. Birds, deer, everything. We got to feel very deeply immersed in nature, even though we were so close to a pretty major town. This was our first time using HipCamp to book a campsite, and it was an interesting experience. I was actually surprised how many unique locations they had to camp. With HipCamp, it allows people with private property that have some sort of a unique element to offer space to campers. And it can be anything from a kind of rustic, no-frills campsite, which is what we are at right now, all the way up to glamping sites that people set up for you. So lots of variety and some very interesting properties. It gives you such a different experience in an area compared to staying in a campground or staying at a state park. And since those were all full, this was our only option left, but we were glad to give this a try. We heard a very strange sound out in the forest and then realized that it was a mother deer trying to find her fawn, and they ran right through our campsite. This place really was full of wildlife. Now, one of the downsides was that just behind the trees was the owner's house. So we were secluded, but not as secluded as I probably would have liked. And on the other side was the road. And it's not a super busy road, but busy enough that there were cars going by from time to time. And Patrick and I have done our fair share of camping, so we are no strangers to going to the bathroom in the woods. But given that we were situated between a house and a road, it made it a little bit tricky and awkward. Patrick set up our extra green tarp as a bit of a privacy shade, and then we just sat there and enjoyed all of the wildlife sounds that came out as the sun went down. There were so many birds, and as it got dark, we got to hear the bullfrogs that were in the pond and all sorts of other insects and creatures in the woods. We even woke up in the middle of the night and we could hear a pack of coyotes howling and barking in the distance. It's a very interesting sound when the only thing separating you from the wildlife is a thin piece of material that makes up your tent. We woke up to a sunny, beautiful day and a whole bunch of different bird and insect sounds. We started to get ready for the day by getting dressed and making some breakfast. And I'm sure that I was saying something quite interesting over this video clip, but the night before, Patrick and I were playing with the settings on the camera, and I totally forgot to switch the settings from slow motion back to regular video. So, little did I know, we were walking around downtown Woodstock for many hours, filming all sorts of footage, and it took me until we were just about to leave to realize that the camera was in slow motion. So we don't have any audio on these clips, but I will do my best to explain what was happening, and we will at least get to walk around and explore downtown Woodstock so you can get a little bit of a feel for what this area is like. In my normal day-to-day life, I usually look forward to Saturdays as a day off work and a day to do something fun. But when we are traveling, I don't really like Saturdays as much because you know you're going to be fighting through some busy crowds. And that was definitely the experience that we had here at Woodstock. So we try not to film people directly when we're walking around, but just keep in mind that we were here on a Saturday and we fought through traffic to find a place to park, which took us quite a while as well. There were a lot of people walking around the streets in most of the areas, so not our favorite thing when we visit somewhere and it's super crowded. We prefer to be away in the woods, somewhere a little bit quieter, but for the sake of experiencing this very famous town, we decided to come here for our last weekend and see what it was all about. We eventually found parking off the main area by the Woodstock Cemetery, and then we walked to the main street and just started to wander around aimlessly without a particular plan. The main road is lined on both sides with all sorts of shops and restaurants, lots and lots of tie-dye everywhere, and we came across this place that had apparently won an award for having the best cupcakes, so we figured we had to try them. We were rather shocked at how small the cupcakes were. These two miniature-sized cupcakes came out to $13, so we were a little bit sticker shocked by that. Yes, we are in a touristy area, and that just comes with it. But when we had the cupcakes, we were kind of like, they were okay. They were not anything special. We've definitely had better baked goods before. So a little disappointed in that, but that's how it goes sometimes. We were doing things a little bit backwards, as we sometimes do. We had dessert, and then we decided to get some actual food. And we got these meatball sandwiches. And again, they were quite expensive and they were just sort of okay. So at this point we were a little bit disappointed, but this is when I realized that the camera was on slow motion and I fixed it. It was about this time that something we call travel fatigue started to set in. When we're on a longer trip, there's a certain point where you just sort of feel like you hit the wall. And we had struggled through traffic, fought to find parking, eaten some overpriced food that was definitely not worth it, and we were sort of done with the whole situation. So we walked back toward the car, and you know I love a good cemetery, so I spent a couple minutes in the very quiet, calm Woodstock Cemetery with some beautiful gravestones, and this was actually my favorite part of exploring Woodstock. The quiet of the cemetery was definitely more our speed at this point, but Patrick and I looked at each other and we both kind of decided that maybe it was time to pack up and head home. doing something today that
Keep left on Garden State Parkway.
I don't think we've ever done on a trip, and that's we're heading home a day early. We were walking around Woodstock today and, you know, kind of seeing all the major areas. And there's a lot to do in the area, but I feel like we were just
7.5 miles
hitting
on
that
Garden State
point
Parkway.
of just being a little bit fatigued because we've been doing so much driving. We were really trying to fit a lot into a short period of time on this trip, and we don't love being in the car a lot. It was sort of just the necessity to fit what we wanted to do into the number of days that we had off work. So we did have to do some longer travel days, and I feel like that kind of took a toll on us. And when you start to get that tired, you're just not enjoying the sightseeing process. And then the other thing was that we really missed the dog, and we knew that that was going to be like a hard thing on this trip. But then today when we were walking around Woodstock, there were just like dogs everywhere. It was to the point where we were just like, oh, there's a dog, there's a dog, there's a dog. And we were like, oh man, we really miss Redford. So it's hard traveling without the dog because we do miss him a lot. He's just a fun dog.
5.8 miles on Garden State Parkway Expressway Lane.
And I feel like there's a lot of things that we like to do that are not necessarily dog friendly. A lot of places you just can't stay with a dog. So it makes travel really tricky. So a lot of times we end up leaving Red with Patrick's parents, which he enjoys. He loves going over there. But we still go through that process of like missing the dog and looking at pictures of the dog and thinking how many days it is until we get to go see Redford again. So I think it was also a little bit tricky with the campsite that we had last night. Great location, very close to downtown Woodstock, and it was a nice area because we were right next to that pond, so there was just like a ton of wildlife and nature sounds, but the bathroom situation was a little tricky. There wasn't a bathroom. We were kind of sandwiched in between the road and the house, which made it tricky. So that just kind of made it slightly uncomfortable, so we were trying to have to like be creative with that. So when we were walking around downtown Woodstock and we were both just kind of not feeling it, we thought maybe we should just head home tonight instead of leaving in the morning. So here we are heading home, ending off this trip, and then we'll just have a little bit more reset time tomorrow to get ready, do the mountain of laundry that we have behind us, and just kind of get ready to go back to work. So, and then we'll start planning our next trip, which is usually what we do immediately after we finish a trip. Let's plan another trip. So the next big trip will be Ireland in November.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us on this very special and somewhat unusual honeymoon road trip through New England. I'm so glad that we were able to share this experience with you. Make sure that you are subscribed so that you get to see when our next video series starts. We have a few exciting trips coming up. We did a trip to Vermont in the fall, and that was a wonderful trip, our first Amtrak train trip. We are going to Florida to explore the northern part of the state, and then we are off on the Finnegan family trip to Ireland. So you know that's going to be a fun one. We'll see you in the next one.
Well, you worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be aware, and I'll be there, so don't be scared. Just take a deep breath of air, and 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again, and though time flies, we'll have enough to realize this bigger than the both of us.